Hey, welcome back for another Read Aloud My Jellyfish. You are once again in the indoor Soloflex government building. Anybody last week actually learn how to tie a tie? I always learned by going twice around with the big side. Once, twice, then taking the big, going under this part. And if you look, there's going to be a part right here that's formed, and you're going to go under that. So you go on under. Whoop! I mean, it's not my best, but it will definitely work. We're going to get right into our reading. Sorry about that. Peter Brown's The Wild Robot. We got a couple chapters here. Chapter 60, The Fish. Help! Help! He's got my tail! Paddler was splashing around and screaming in the pond. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver were nowhere to be seen, so Roz picked up a fallen tree branch and stomped into the shallows. Grab onto this, she said as she reached out with the branch. Paddler grabbed with his big teeth, and the robot lifted him out of the water. And there, hanging from the young beaver's tail, was Rockmouth, the grumpy old pike. In one quick movement, Roz pulled in the branch and gripped the fish with her two hands. Paddler flopped into the water where his parents suddenly appeared. What's wrong with you, Rockmouth? Mrs. Beaver dragged her son away. You've always been a nuisance, but this has gone too far. Do us all a favor, Roz, and toss him to the vultures. I cannot do that, said the robot, but I might be able to help. Roz placed Rockmouth in a deep puddle near the pond so he couldn't swim away. Then she waited for the fish to explain himself. Fish aren't very talkative, especially grumpy fish like Rockmouth, but eventually he opened up to the robot, and before long, she was waving for the beavers to join them. Rockmouth used to live in this river, said Roz as the beavers shuffled over, but you trapped him here when you built your dam. He's been very angry about it ever since. That doesn't give him the right to attack my son, hollered Mr. Beaver. It certainly does not, hollered Mrs. Beaver. I'd be upset too, said Paddler softly. I'd hate to be kept away from my home. Mr. Rockmouth, you should have said something sooner. The fish looked up from the puddle with a frustrated expression that meant, I tried, but no one was listening. Well, the situation had to be remedied. And can you guess who rose to the occasion? Roz was determined to get Rockmouth back to his home. After she explored the nearby waterways, it became clear that she would have to carry the pike through the forest and across the great meadow to the nearest bend in the river. I need a large container, said Roz to the beavers, something that I can fill with water so Rockmouth can breathe while I carry him home. I could make it myself, but I thought you might like to help. It couldn't have been easy to overcome her anger with Rockmouth, but after Mrs. Beaver had a chance to cool down, she finally came around. I suppose we're partially to blame for this whole situation, she muttered. Then the beavers did the right thing, and together they carved out a wooden barrel for the fish. Here you go. Mr. Beaver rolled the barrel over the puddle, where the robot and the fish were waiting. This should work nicely, Rockmouth. I hope you'll be happy back in the river. Rockmouth just flicked his tail in a way that meant, will someone please take me home now? Roz filled the barrel with water and the grumpy fish, and then they were off. She carried Rockmouth through the forest and across the meadow until she was standing on the riverbank. You're home, said the robot, and she tipped the barrel and the fish plunked into the river. Rockmouth's face poked above the surface. He flashed a big toothy grin and then quickly swam away. Chapter 61, The Robot Stories. I think I can do this in 30 seconds. The story of how Roz helped Rockmouth spread through the river and across the island, and it was soon followed by other robot stories. There were stories of Roz growing gardens in dry, barren places. There were stories of Roz nursing sick animals back to health. There were stories of Roz creating ropes and wheels and tools for helping her friends. But most of the stories were about the robot's wildness. You see, Roz had noticed that the wilder she acted, the more the animals liked her. So she barked with the foxes and sang with the birds and hissed with the snakes. She romped with the weasels. She sunbathed with the lizards. She leaped with the deer. That spring was a very wild time for our robot. Chapter 62, The Return. It was a quiet afternoon on the pond, but quiet was gradually being overtaken by the sounds not heard around there for many months. The sounds grew louder and louder, and then a flock of geese appeared above the trees. Honk, 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 honk. Most flocks of geese move lazily through the sky and trail off in wobbly lines, but not this one. This flock was fast. It flew in a perfect V formation, and it was led by a small, graceful goose. Wonder who that might be. The flock flew once around the pond before gliding down and gently splashing in the water. The geese gathered in a tight group in the middle of the pond. They floated there a while, softly honking to one another. And then the leader broke away from the others. He swam straight toward the nest, waddled into the garden, and fluttered up on his mother's shoulders. "Welcome home, son," said Roz. "It's good to be back, Ma," said Brightbill. That's it. 3 chapters under 6 minutes. Thank you guys for coming. Please, 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 please get excited for tomorrow. We're going to be doing chapter 63, The Journey, which is all about what Brightbill did while he was gone. See you tomorrow. Stay safe.